Welcome back to the Cinepark Rangers channel. I'm John.
And I'm Olivia, and we are so excited to share our notes and review on the 2023 version of Haunted Mansion. John, what did you think?
Yeah, so right off the rip, I went in with what I would call very tempered expectations for this one. I just didn't have super high expectations, and I think I kind of mentioned that in our Haunted Mansion deep dive a little bit, but the reality is a lot of the live action Disney stuff in particular, it just hasn't been hitting for me lately. I think a lot of that has to do with most of them are the remakes and that sort of thing. And what my sort of initial impression was, first off, I loved the movie. I really did. Like I enjoyed it a lot. It kind of surprised me how much I enjoyed it. If that makes sense. Like I wasn't expecting it to be anything great, and I came away with it with a few notes that were, I don't know, it was just sort of funny because, like, I think where I landed was you don't really have to do too much to make a fun and endearing film. It
I
really
agree.
the bar isn't that high, but like I think I should preface by I'll just use like the Little Mermaid as an example because it's the most recent one. It was sort of a fine film to me, you know what I mean? And I won't go like into all of my like whatever with it because the reality is like it's a Little Mermaid movie. Like it's almost a shot for shot remake of the original, and with some added things like they tried to give Eric some extra stuff, whatever, like which is all appreciated. The problem with it for me was it still feels void of soul. It feels void of the thing that Disney did so well in the late 80s and 90s with all of their sort of golden era animation stuff. And you're not going to capture that same lightning in a bottle twice. So, in my opinion, like, why bother trying? The Haunted Mansion is a really interesting one to me because that first movie didn't do so well. Like, it's not like monetarily it did, fine, whatever. It like made the money that it needed to make, I think. But generally speaking, people didn't care for it too much. Like, people didn't love it. And it's interesting because I think that there are more. There's a stronger case for Disney to sort of take the approach that they just did with Haunted Mansion, with other properties. Like they're sort of sidelining some of the animated movies that didn't get the attention that they maybe deserved, like Treasure Planet or Atlantis or whatever, movies like that. You know what I'm talking about. Like there's plenty of them. And if you
Yeah.
love Disney stuff, if anyone that's watching this loves Disney stuff, you probably can name even more. Those are just the two that they sort of stick out right off the rip. But all that to say, I really, really liked the movie a lot. I smiled the whole time. I really enjoyed Lakeith Stanfield a lot. I really enjoyed Owen Wilson a lot. Tiffany Haddish. And sort of the standout to me, actually, was Chase Dillon, the son. He
Yes.
he was so good. It was so good. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, this kid is great. Get this kid in all the stuff, like all the stuff. And we did like a brief, just like a brief search through his IMDb credits, and he hasn't really been in like a whole ton of stuff yet. So hopefully this is a good launching point for him because it's well deserved. He does a good job in this movie. But anyway, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, yeah, to piggyback off of Chase, I mean, he's phenomenal. And I also did the same thing. I went to his IMDb to see what he's done, and I love to see a fresh face that hasn't been in much and did
Yep.
a phenomenal job. I mean, his performance is so stellar. And I always zero in on child actors because they can make it or break a performance, but or a film. But
Yeah, without a doubt.
I don't I don't. I should say I also don't put too much pressure on a film for a child performance, but
Sure.
oh my gosh, his performance was incredible. Even in just his facial expressions when he didn't have dialogue. If you weren't paying attention, you really should have been, because he was performing the whole time. It was so good. And I'm so excited to see him in more films after this. I did see he has an upcoming project with Lakeith. So yeah,
cool.
there's more to come with him. So that's exciting. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I decided to go in with as few expectations as possible. I knew
Likewise.
that it was it was, Haunted Mansion, and I had seen the trailer and that there were going to be elements from the ride. But beyond that, sometimes I don't even like to watch trailers. I just like to go into things blind, and then I have so much more grace for storytelling, because I have such an eye for details, and I can't help but notice technical things that it's very helpful for me to simplify my viewing experience. And that's not the case for everybody. I think that has more to do with our educational background and our line of work.
Most definitely.
So it's just, it's more enjoyable for me to go in and just have a good time and not expect anything. And like you said before, you were smiling the whole time, so was I. And I did not expect that, because I heard very mixed reviews.
I know.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't really have any issues with the script.
No, me either.
They did so well, and they took creative liberties. They built on the lore. I just thought it was going to be a retelling of what we already have, but it's not necessarily that. We do have a lot of what is from the original attraction, but it's so much more than that. I almost don't want to give it away because the film is so fresh. It's just not what I expected at all.
Same. Yeah, we'll keep it spoiler free for anyone that's watching this.
Yeah. For sure. I will say, though, it made the placement of the Hatbox Ghost make sense. So that was a big thing in Disney news in the last few weeks, was where they were placing the Hatbox Ghost in Walt Disney World. And it didn't really make sense for where he was, because basically the lore of Haunted Mansion is you're not supposed to see ghosts until after you go through the seance room with Madame Leota. She calls those spirits forward, and then you go through the ballroom sequence, and you see all of those, like the ghosts dancing and having the duel, and it's all of that stuff. But technically you're gonna see him before that, and I will tell you that the movie totally explains it. I had an epiphany during that film. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. And I am excited about it. Change is hard for some people, and I think that's why there's mixed reviews, especially from people who love the classic attraction so much and the story. But I embrace it. And I also felt like there were missing pieces, to be honest. That, they did tell a story throughout the ride, but there were always questions that I had, like why could they only have 1,000 happy haunts?
Right.
They only had room for one more. And,
Yep.
So those are just hints on what the movie kind of builds on and explains to you more.
Yes.
My heart was really happy about that.
Yeah, mine too. It was fun. Like those sorts of things. I did catch on some of those things, and I'm going to be honest with you, like before putting together the last video, I don't know that I would have caught quite as much as I caught this time around, but there are so many really, really fantastic winks, nods, all those sorts of things that they just like, it's like you said, I think you said it really well. They really expand on the ride in a respectful way, and in a way that makes sense too. Like to sort of fill in some of those holes. And we won't go into too much detail or anything like that. I really don't want to give anything away just because it's only been out about a week by the time this video comes out. So people still probably haven't seen it, and I'm hoping that word of mouth really picks up, truthfully, because I know that it's not doing super duper well right now. And that's a shame. But again, I think that a lot of that just harkens back to people have kind of lost faith in Disney's ability to produce solid live action stuff right now, and rightfully so. Like I understand. I think we've said it here before, but just again, just by virtue of our background, what we do for a living, all those sorts of things, we tend to go watch most things probably, and obviously Disney stuff is no exception, just because of our love for the parks as well. But that said, I think that that all the things that they did well with, like, concerning expanding on the ride, or like winks and nods to the ride, or just outright, like, they had full-on sequences with some of the main, like rooms in the ride that were really, really fun, that the first one just didn't have. Like, there was none of that, and I so appreciated those things. It made it infinitely more pleasurable to watch and process and enjoy. And it's not to say it's perfect. Like, just because we're saying that we really like it, I do have issues with it. But most of those fall on the technical end of things.
Right.
I'll go ahead and just say, like, my biggest thing is it does turn into, and this is in a sense, this is almost unavoidable, I think, just again by nature of what it is, like when you're dealing with ghosts and stuff. But it gets very CG heavy in the third act, which is whatever. It's not that big of a deal, and it's not that the CG is bad. It's just like you're going to be able to tell that, oh yeah, that's not makeup, that's CG, that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Where in our first conversation about this, when you were talking about Guillermo del Toro having like, he had a lot of involvement on sort of the front end of kind of getting this thing remade, I was like, like, I wonder had he been in charge of this, like, and also been tempered a bit by Disney in terms of like character designs and that sort of thing, would they have used more practical makeup? Because there are, at least to my eye, I noticed several points where they were using practical makeup, and it was really cool. Like, it looked really sweet. So I think that there were a few things like that they could have done. Like, if they would have leaned into it more, it would have, I don't know, it just would have added, some like production value to it, whatever. The only other issue, quote unquote, that I had with it really is this movie has a lot of heart to it, and the heart gets a little bit lost. I shouldn't say lost, that's probably not the right word. It gets a bit undermined almost immediately, and in a couple of sequences there a lot of the time they do give you a chance to, like, let it breathe and sort of sink in and that sort of thing, which was good. I wasn't necessarily expecting that, so the fact that they did do that was cool. I liked that a lot. But I just, like, there were a few, I was telling the folks that I went with, like, had they been able to ground it all, maybe like 5% more, I think for me personally, I would have enjoyed it even more so. Like, I probably would have given it like closer to a 9. But the thing is, the reality is, the ride, like, this was a big issue with the ride, right? Like, some of the Imagineers wanted it to be more scary, some of them wanted it to be very whimsical. So trying to strike that balance is no small feat, and the fact that they were able to do it as well as they did, I think, is commendable. Like, it's definitely one that the fam should throw in, at Halloween time for your kids, like when it's like
Absolutely. And I thought that the through line of grief was so
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. And
Agreed.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a really tough one to do because not everyone has experienced grief on a level that they'll be able to relate to that part of the storyline.
Sure. Yeah.
So that might not even land for that audience at all. So that's tough. But I agree. If it had gotten like 5% more, it would have been spectacular. But it was still really really good. I mean there were a few lines in there and a few moments that were so solid that I didn't even realize that I had crocodile tears going
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
It was just that wonderful. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and they foreshadowed those moments so well that I think, like you said, like you could put this on for families, and the story structure is somewhat like simple enough that younger audiences could pick up on these lessons and those storylines very easily, and
Yeah.
it's a
Agreed.
really great introduction to those concepts.
Yeah.
And those were
This.
things that I was thinking about after watching it and throughout the day, because I saw this at the time we're filming this, I saw this last night. So
Right. Right.
I've been
Right.
like really thinking about this for only less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was the most impactful thing for me, is they really thought about this for a wide range of ages.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
They did.
I think that was so smart. So
Yeah.
wonderfully smart.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I will say this. As a father of a kid that's like 2, this is a great introduction to horror movies in general. I think. There are not like overtly like I don't know. Like it's when I think of like a traditional horror film, it doesn't quite land into that territory, but it does give you some tropes. Like there are a few jump scares, and like the ghosts are still like they have some creep factor to them for sure. And it's in like it's in sort of a silly way, but it's not necessarily a cutesy way, if that makes sense. They're still like, I mean, it's a PG-13 movie, so like they lean into it a little bit, which I as an older audience member really enjoyed. I think that like, and I can only speak for me. I think if it's like my kids, and every kid's different, probably like 9, 10, like that territory, you're pretty safe. I would say earlier than that, you might have like some kids going into your bedroom saying that they had some night terrors or that, whatever. Like you might get a little bit of that. But
Yeah.
but they really did like like going like even just the film being PG-13, it's like okay, like you can sort of go in with an expectation of like okay, we know what's going on here. Like this is going to have a little bit of like scariness to it, but not
Right.
nothing crazy. Like I'm trying to think like let's use like Insidious as an example to just to weigh it against, because that's a PG-13 horror movie. Nowhere near that ballpark. Like you're
Right.
nowhere near that ballpark.
Yeah.
You're fine. Like I would say like I think Insidious came out when I was like 15 or so, and 15, 16, whatever it was. And man, that movie was scary. That was a scary one for PG-13.
Right.
So this does not get to that level of just like suspense and like all those sorts of things, because I think that's a big thing with horror too, is like you have the scary, but then like the big thing that an effective horror film does is they keep you on the edge of your seat. So
Absolutely.
it didn't do like that. It's fun. It's a fun ride through the whole time. And speaking
Yeah.
of ride,
Yeah.
real fast, I was wrong about the Doom buggies. They're not in there, but I
No,
was
well,
wondering.
they're not in there. I don't think you were wrong though.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So like they're and it's in the trailer, so I'm comfortable like talking about this. There's a sequence where like where they're getting they're getting pulled out of the house like by sitting in chairs, and one of the chairs does look very Dune buggy-ish.
It's meant to look like a Dune buggy. Sorry, I said Dune buggy, but Dune buggy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's totally meant to look like a Dune buggy. Yeah. No, I think that was an absolute Easter egg. There were a lot of Easter eggs in this film.
Tons, so many.
And from both coasts, I think.
Yeah.
My favorite one, which is specifically from Disneyland, was the tree that had a face. And I don't know if you caught on to that one, but it's not in Walt Disney World. So when you are pushed off of the roof going into the graveyard, there are trees, and in Disneyland, those trees have faces. Like they're snarling at you. They're nasty, and it's so fun. But in Walt Disney World, you don't have that, and I've never quite understood why they didn't put that in there.
Yeah.
Maybe just to save something for Disneyland, or maybe
Perhaps,
they
yeah.
added that into Disneyland later. I don't know, but it was really fun to see that specific detail added to the movie, because like, who thought of that? Who was specific enough to say, no, we need these trees? Because I remember going to Disneyland for the first time. I was a high schooler and thinking, we don't have these in Disney World, do we? Because these are awesome. So that was really special to me. But I also loved that we had both versions of the Haunted Mansions in the movie.
Yeah. Agreed. Again, like, without getting into too much, here's the thing, y'all. Like, if you're a Disney fan, like, if you love the parks, if you love the rides, you're gonna love this. I think, unless it's like you were saying earlier, like you're just a stickler and don't like change, or like don't like anything to be touched, which, fair enough, to each their own. But if you just are enjoying things, like, or trying to go into it just to enjoy it, you're gonna have a good time with this one. Definitely recommend going to see it for sure. And there are plenty of movies that I've seen this year. I've seen a lot that I would say it's not worth your time. This is not one of those. This is definitely one of Disney's more solid entries this year for sure. And I hope that word of mouth does well for it, because it really deserves to be seen. I think, like, we're kind of in our infancy as a channel and that sort of thing, and we don't have, like, I know a lot of these guys, like some of my favorites have, like different tiers in terms of, like Jeremy Johnson's, like, has the, it's better if you're drunk, like that, now it's a party, like that's fun, or it's like, no, it's awesome-tacular, or like there are a few things like that, for me, I would say it's worth buying a ticket. Like, it deserves your dollar. Go watch it. Like, have fun seeing it.
For sure.
It's not a wait till Disney Plus to me.
No.
It's not one of those. Like, go give your money to to Disney but really I would say, like, less to Disney, more to, like, the crew that made this thing happen, and to the cast. Like, it deserves that recognition, I think. It's clear that the people that made it had great care in crafting this film, and you can't say that about a lot of things these days when it comes to movies, for sure, but definitely not a lot of Disney stuff. So
no, that's true. I agree, and I will say, like, my theater has already cut back showings to 3 a day, and that says a lot. And that's probably more to do with the fact that it's up against Barbenheimer, which is a tough slot. I mean, those two movies are still selling out, and theaters have to put them in more units because the demand is high, and so that means less theaters are able to host the Haunted Mansion. So Yeah. So we're getting closer and closer to a time when they're just going to have to send it over to streaming services. So go soon.
Yeah.
Even though it just opened on Friday from when
Yeah.
we filmed this. That's kind of crazy to me that
It is.
that's the scenario we're looking at.
Yeah, it
So
is.
don't wait. Go. Even if you go on a discount Tuesday, go.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. There's a couple that are like that. Mission Impossible, which was a fun movie. Like, it was, again, like, worth going to watch in theaters for sure. Anything like that, I always want to see it, like, as big as possible. But that's out of a lot of theaters now too, which is kind of nuts. Like, that's a huge, huge movie. And I think, if I'm being real, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's a part one. That I don't know that was a great move. And it feels like a part one when you're watching it. It's great. But it's not as good as like the last couple that they've done, in my opinion. Not to get off on too much of a tangent there, but there are a few films that have been like that this summer that I'm like, why in the world did this not stick around longer?
I know.
And I guess to contrast that, Elemental is still playing at my theater, which is kind of nuts because I know that hasn't done great either. And here it is. It's still kicking. Still around. I haven't gotten around to see that one yet. I will though.
I do wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that, like, I was looking at the summer lineup and there just weren't a ton of movies that were meant for families. And that's kind of tough for summertime because what is there to do during the heat of summer? And moms want to take their kids to the movies for a few hours to sit in the AC and have them entertained for the block of their day. So I was kind of stunned that there wasn't a solid lineup. So maybe that's why they've extended Elemental. Who knows? But now we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh man, yeah, I'm reviewing that one. I'm probably gonna end up reviewing that one right after we finish this up. Yeah, I'll talk about it later. But I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, because I haven't seen that one. I don't know if I'll make it to the theater for that, so I'll look forward to your review.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess we'll just keep this one brief for you guys. Again, thumbs up from us. Go watch it. It's totally worth your time. Enjoy it. Look for all the Easter eggs. They're fun to look for. Yeah. The cast brought it, for the most part. Like, I really enjoyed it. One final like thing that was a head scratcher for me. And I love Jamie Lee Curtis, but weird choice in my opinion, because Madame Leota's always been portrayed as like this younger, like this younger, like, lady, like always. And Jamie Lee Curtis is, I mean, she's not old, but she's older for sure.
You're not wrong.
It's different. It's a deviation, but I guess that you could chalk that up to, like you were talking about earlier, one of the deviations that they took, creative liberties perhaps that they took. But she's great. Like, she does what Jamie Lee Curtis does. She's good.
Right.
she's good.
It's Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah. No qualms.
Yeah.
Just thought it was interesting.
That was an interesting one.
Yeah. All right.
Well,
anyway, okay.
Let us know if you've seen it. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments, or leave a like. We hate to say it, but it does help. And if you go see it, come back around, and again, let us know your thoughts. And that's
please.
All we have for today. But we had a great time, and we'll see you at the next one.